When should your son or daughter start weight training? When is it safe? What should they be doing and at what age? Well, we're going to go and ask the pro. With us today is Greg Drab, owner and I guess director of Advantage Personal Training, and he's going to be our go to the pro. We're going to find out, when is it safe for kids to start weight training?
It's a really great question. What you'd find is if you were to look on the internet and research it, they have programs for kids as early as age of 7. They'll have it between 7 and 10, 11 to 14, 15 to 18. So what we found is, when is a kid coachable? When is a kid going to be able to follow the instruction of a coach? Because, just this last night I was complaining to my wife. We were watching a show on A&E on kids and bodybuilders. And what it was you had parents having their kids do bodybuilders. So there might have been a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old lifting weights at home. And why it was cringing was they had these guys lifting weights, and every time they did a bench press, you could see their shoulders kind of glide forward like this. And I'm saying to my wife, oh my God, they're going to wreck their shoulders doing this. And the father's over here, good, let's do more, let's do more. And having the kids kind of smack their face, it was sort of entertaining, but sort of weird in the same point. I wanted to write into the show and say, you guys are doing more harm than good. It's really like any sport, it's technique. Can people move correctly before you start to load them and make things harder?
How important is it for you guys to know the development of that specific boy or girl or child? Because young kids develop differently, some faster, some quicker. But how important is it for you guys to take somebody one-on-one and get to know them a little bit?
Anybody, whether a kid, adult, we got to get them in and assess them and evaluate them. We have a system that we follow called the functional movement screen. It tells us how well people move, and athletes are the best at compensating. And when you train an athlete, if you can clean up just a little bit of movements, suddenly they can get lower, suddenly they can get to the base quicker. Just things start to clean up because they're not compensating, they're not using the wrong muscles to get them there.
What's your number one approach when you're training, a youngster? A sophomore, junior, even earlier than that in high school, for football, for basketball, for baseball? Is it basically functional body muscle? Is it, full on with the weights? Some of those old school things are going by the wayside nowadays.
Right. Really, we train everyone in our place as if they're an athlete. So we're going to have them functional, we're going to have them upright, we're going to have them moving. Gone are the days of just, hey, go to this machine, pull the pin, do that. Go to this machine, pull the pin, do that. Or, deadlift as much weight as you can pick up off the floor. It's really about, can I get you to move correctly using the right movements?
So separating out, and I think this is an important distinction. It's okay to start training at the age in which you become coachable. My son is 8, and he is incredibly coachable. So he could start training, he could start doing workouts. But when you start talking about things like weight training or resistance training that are going to be designed to build strength and maybe mass, that can't possibly be good at 8 years old.
No, because what happens is, because my own son is 10 and 11, my own kids are 10 and 11, and what I'm coaching them now is how well to get them to move, to do things correctly. We use a term called relative strength, and what that is how strong are you for your body? Because, as an athlete, the most important piece of equipment is their body. So if they're really good at moving with their body, we're going to make them better. So when you talk about, well, I want to build mass, I want to build this weight, testosterone is what builds muscle mass. That's why women and men can work out together, and men are going to put on more muscle because they have more testosterone. An 8-year-old kid doesn't have that much testosterone. And so it's mindless to waste any time trying to bulk up your 8-year-old. It's really about wherever they are in their growth and development when you're starting to worry about muscle. And typically, I find that to be somewhere as early as 14 with some athletes to 18, 19 with others. It's just where they are developmentally.
My wife and I work out in our hometown, and the local high school has kids. And these kids are, I never had kids. Even the best athletes when I was in high school didn't look like these kids. They are in an amazing shape, and they're at this gym pounding weights night after night after night. And I'm asking myself, isn't there going to come a point, though, where the shoulder or the knee just has hit, can't do any more repetitions of this?
Right. Like every joint in the body, it's sort of like you can overuse anything. I started weight training at 12, just so you know. My brothers kind of threw together a Muscle Magazine book, and I'm sure I did a ton of things wrong.
You haven't stopped, I've
never stopped. I'm 40 years old now. What it did do for me that was good was it gave me that habit. I got into this habit of doing something that I started in 1998 and have not stopped since. Yeah, I did a lot of things wrong. I was reading muscle magazines that were written by bodybuilders on steroids, but luckily I didn't get hurt, and luckily it's kind of helped mold my career.
So when you have, especially with, boys and girls are different as well. I mean,
Right.
and you see more girls weight training. What's the approach when you're training some of the female athletes out there? Because you have a lot of them, and kids too. I mean, Carolyn Tabor's been in your gym.
Yes.
Do you use a different approach with that?
Yeah, I mean, what you do with athletes is you look at what sport they're in and what injuries are kind of common with that sport. If they're a tennis athlete, is there shoulder and elbow injuries? If they're a softball pitcher, if they're a pitcher, there's going to be more risk of shoulder injuries.
Right.
And so you kind of look at their sport, and then you look at the athlete and see sort of how well are they moving? Like, are they standing with an arch? Are they standing slunched over? Because she could have the best pitching mechanics ever, but if she's not in good posture position when she throws the ball, it's not going to be good on her shoulder.
And so there's no real answer to what's a good age to start your son or your daughter in weight training. It all depends on the individual and if they're doing it properly.
I would say once they're coachable and they're able to listen to a coach, you want to work on getting their relative strength, getting them strong for using their body. At some point, wherever they are developmentally, if you're trying to build muscle mass, it's kind of that puberty stage. I mean, do they have facial hair? Do they have armpit hair? Are they developmentally starting to have that testosterone to build muscle mass?
So I want to ask you to give. There's going to be a lot of kids and teenagers who watch this show, as well as grown-ups. So what is the one piece of advice that you would give to the kids that are watching the show, and what is the one piece of advice you would give to the parents of these kids that are watching the show?
To the kids, I would say, and this is really hard for kids, make it about the quality of what you're doing, not the quantity. Because oftentimes they just want to do heavier. Oh, I did this last week, I want to do heavier this week. And it's really about how good is the movement that they're doing. To the parents, know that your kids are going to be more apt to get together and compete against each other and maybe overdo it. Get them in an environment where you can have somebody supervise and kind of guide them to what's right for them.
Makes sense. I mean, he's got all the answers. Look at him.
I have been looking at them, and sitting next to the two of you, I'm going to say that the mind is the most important body part that you have. We want to thank Greg Drab, owner of Advantage Personal Fitness, for personal training, for coming in and really educating us on important aspects of weight training. And certainly for those people that are watching, if you have any questions about that specifically, you can send them in on Facebook or on our social media or to theday.com. And if you have a specific question for Greg, we'll get it to him, and then we can help some people out.
Awesome.
Keep up the good work, Greg.
Thanks, Casey.
Nice job,
Thanks,
all right?
Casey. Appreciate it.